attendees, and we have a number of attendees, and we hope to grow the organization by next year. But anyway, but thank you for attending. So the roll call, Anton?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. We're going to do the roll call by chat. So if you would please go to chat and enter your name in chat. That will be our roll call. Also ask if you would mute your Zoom. Keith Mueller, who's our webmaster, will recognize speakers during the meeting. So if everybody would please enter their name into chat, and that will be the roll call. We will print out from the chat the roll call, and that'll be the basis for entering the roll call in the official minutes for this meeting. So perhaps we'll take another minute or so, and we'll then go back to the agenda. All right, Madam President, I think we have the roll call. I think we can proceed with the meeting.
Okay, so item number 3, the Executive Director Report for 2021. You're on, Anton.
Thank you. As part of our reorganization, we did formally appoint an executive director effective November 1st of this year. I, in addition to being a co-founder and the board corporate secretary of the board corporate treasurer, I am now the executive director. And it's our hope as we move forward that this would be a full-time paid position as we move forward in the years ahead. What I'm going to do is kind of highlight 9 areas that I think we made significant progress on during the past year. All of these efforts were focused on building the capacity of our organization to deliver services to the some 500 CBOCs in California. There's about 3,000 CBOC members in these various committees. I'm going to talk specifically about 9 areas. First, I'm going to discuss briefly the conference, the first statewide conference we had in October 16th last year. Talk about the strategic plan study that the University of Southern California did for us, our legislative proposal. I'm going to talk about our constant contact marketing database, the website, our newsletter, training materials. We filed our first amicus brief that we did, and a little bit about our database of CBOCs. So again, the focus for 2021 was to increase the capacity of our organization to deliver support to independent oversight committees. Our first conference was very successful. We had 85 participants. We had 10 presentations by various board members and advisors. Moss Adams, who's a large CPA firm, was the sponsor of our conference. They paid us a sponsorship fee of $5,000, which helped support the conference. We had many questions that were answered during the conference, and we answered every single question that was not timed to answer during the conference. We provided written answers to all of those questions, some 27 pages, and those are all posted on our website. So I think the conference was very successful. We got a lot of good feedback. Conference chair was Tom Rubin, and I thought he did a fantastic job. We had a strategic plan prepared by the Southern California School of Public Policy. That was presented to the board in August. That was a free report. It would have a value of about $50,000 if we had hired a consultant to perform that service. And this provides a roadmap for us to increase our capacity as we move forward. And that's going to be the strategic planning, and whether we're prepared for strategic planning is going to be the subject of our 10:30 board retreat with Greg Vizino, who's going to be leading that retreat. Another highlight of the year was our legislative proposal. We spent a considerable amount of time with our legislative committee preparing a detailed proposal with rationale and proposed language. This proposal would implement the various recommendations made for legislation prepared by the Little Hoover Commission. Also, we noted that the chair of the Little Hoover Commission, Mr. Nava, presented a letter to the state treasurer supporting our proposal. So we're very excited about that. That's going to be one of our major focuses in the 2022 year in terms of getting that legislative program moving forward. Sally DeWitt and Jason Hunter were the co-chairs of that committee. I think we had a lot of progress last year. The third major item that we did was building our database. At the end of last year, we had 318 people in our database. We now have 4,700, including associations, legislators, media. We've got some 2,000 current or former CBOC members. We have 50 voting members of our organization, 877 newspaper subscribers, state controllers, CDPA firms, county and district board members and CBOCs. So we now have a very comprehensive database that we can use for marketing our services to our various constituents. Our website, Linda Lizito, I used to use the term webmaster, but I now have to learn the term web mistress. Linda Lizito, Linda did a fantastic job on our website. Substantial improvement where we have frequently asked questions, best practices, resources. We have 32 links to external sites. So we have a very powerful website. We're putting all our governance documents, all our board minutes, executive committee minutes, our financial statements, list of directors and our advisors and staff are all now on our website. So I think we really have a good website that we can move forward with. The newsletter, we published 22 issues of our newsletter. Again, Linda is our editor there. I think the newsletter was an excellent way for us to communicate. Here we did surveys. Here's showing the survey we did on the strategic planning as part of our newsletter operation. Training materials, chair there is Marcus Crowley. Had a very productive year. We've got 31 frequently asked questions that were published and posted on the website. We have 15 in production. We have a best practice memorandum on memorandum of understanding, which we published and we're currently updating. And we have 3 resource documents that are in production. So I think Marcus and his crew did a very noteworthy. We did file our first amicus brief. This is a case in Fresno Unified School District. I think that was a real milestone. And we do have a database now that is maintained. We keep a database of all the active K-12 and community college districts. We maintain that base by adding to the database new elections that are come up. And then we monitor when the projects are completed. We ask for the final audit report. And once we get the final audit report that shows all the expenditures have been spent, we remove from the database. So every district then that is on the database is active, currently have a CBOC, and we monitor the CBOCs to get their membership and their status. And we also, in that database, have the website for each CBOC in California so that we can use that to do surveys and communicate directly with the various CBOCs. So I think that's a powerful tool. I think we're probably the only organization in California that can give you the names of the active CBOCs in California. I welcome your questions and comments, requests, and recommendations by telephone or email, anytime, day or night. That's the end of my report. Madam President, open to taking questions.
Thank you, Anton. A report well done, and it shows how active this group is in terms of providing relevant information to our stakeholders. So anyway, we will be taking some comments from members. And so I believe that Keith will be sort of managing who the speakers are. So any questions? I see MP Dennis. So he'll start with there and then Keith will take over for providing access to the speakers. Thank you, Keith.
I think initially, Moses, your hand is raised.
Unmute.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Yes, I was going to ask if the presentation slides will be shared or provided to the attendees.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments? You can raise your hand.
Lorraine, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I just wanted to compliment Keith on the IT work he did on the on our event. I think it was excellent, and we're all novices. All the people that were presenting were novices, and I think he handled it very well. Thank you, Keith.
No problem.
Now, don't be shy. You can ask us all kinds of questions. Here is your opportunity. Okay, so anyway, okay, I think we've got no more comments. So we'll go into the next area, which is the election of directors, item 5. Anton?
Thank you, Madam President. The bylaws provide that we establish an annual elections nominations committee. That committee this year is Lorraine Humes, Anton Younghair, and Keith Mueller. Their job is to make recommendations for nominations for directors. In addition, we will accept nominations from the floor. Currently, the board has authorized 16 director positions. 10 of those director positions are currently filled. 6 are vacant, 5 of which are in Southern California and 1 in Northern California. The director terms are for 2 years, January of this year to December of next year. The nomination committee is recommending 5 candidates, and I'm going to show those on the screen here. And can you, this is the ballot for the election. Les Monte is from Los Angeles County. He's a former member and chair of the Beverly Hills CBOC, and he's a member and current chair of the Beverly Hills CBOC since 2019. Mark Carroll is a new member of the Beverly Hill CBOC. David Lyle is a community activist who has a passion for oversight and is interested in running as a candidate for his local school board. Mac Moore is a current director, and he's a former member of the West Contra Costa Unified School District, CBOC. Laura Santos from Los Angeles County is a former member of the Bassett Unified School District, CBOC, and a former member of the school board in Bassett. And she's currently a Mount San College Board of Trustees. So you are able to vote for 7 candidates. There are 5 candidates who we have nominated, and there are 2 write-in candidates if anybody wishes to write in a candidate. So you're free now.
If you can't see the 7th, you have to scroll down a little bit in order to see the blank page or the blank spot for the 7th candidate.
There we go.
Question.
Is that Jack?
Yes. Anton, have all of the candidates agreed to serve as directors?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anton,
Yes.
is it correct that the slate of candidates have been presented to the directors board and that they have approved of their running? And one of their duties is to approve the proposed annual ballot that includes a slate of qualified candidates or directors. Have they approved this slate?
The slate is the work of the Nominations Elections Committee. That's correct.
No, I mean the board, the directors.
No, we are a membership organization, so all directors are elected by the members. It's not elected by the board. It's not where the board elects their own members. Membership is by the total 50 current members. So it would be not appropriate for the board to elect their own members. It has to be done by the full membership.
May I interject one second here, because I did notice in the chat that I believe there's 2 people who cannot see the ballot. So what I'm going to do here, and I think I understand why, it's just the nature of Zoom, and I think it's that some people have an earlier edition of Zoom rather than a later edition. So what I may do right now for those who can see the ballot, certainly you may use it, and then I will also, I think right now, take a snapshot of the ballot, so those who can't see it, then you can see what we're talking about. Because I think the problem is that you cannot. It's an earlier edition of Zoom. This is maybe what's happening right now. So if you don't mind, let me take a quick screenshot while everybody's working on this. Okay. Oh, okay, great. All right, let me go mute. Hold on.
Well, Lorraine, did I explain the answer to your question?
Well, I think I was more concerned about that they were checked for qualification. In the bylaws, section 6, number G, it states, as I had read it, that the directors, one of the duties is to approve the proposed annual ballot that includes a slate of qualified candidates for director. So evidently it's just to make sure that these are qualified people.
Right, they don't get the vote.
Yeah, right.
Some boards elect their own directors, so it's a self-perpetuating board. But in our case, we are a membership organization.
Mhm.
May I make a comment? Lorraine, I think what we've encountered here is a glitch where the board decision previously to delegate responsibility for developing a slate of candidates, including making sure that they were qualified, is in conflict with this particular part of the bylaws. And so, Anton, I think we ought to make a side note that we should consider modifying the bylaws to eliminate that conflict. My sense is we're really not talking about, the issue is not who has the authority to elect directors. That is clearly the members at the membership meeting. It's another issue that has raised here, and it sounds like it is in conflict with the bylaws, and I think we should propose an amendment to the bylaws. But in the meantime, I move that we close the nominations for the board of directors and move to take the vote on their nomination.
Before we do that, Jack, could we ask if there are any nominations from the floor?
Got it. I withdraw my motion.
I would then ask, are there any nominations from the floor for other candidates? And if you would raise your hand, and Keith, if you would tell me if there is anyone that wants to make a nomination. Is there anybody,
Yeah, you do though, because I mean, everybody has the right. I mean, our government should not tell us what we have to do.
No, I don't see any from the floor.
all right, then, Madam President, could you please entertain Jack's motion?
Okay, Jack's motion, could you repeat that, Jack?
I move we close the nominations.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, and so discussion, I believe that we have had discussion earlier, so do we want to go with a vote?
Call the
So-
question.
A vote, and we just raise our hands or put our little hands up from our little reaction on those who agree.
And then
We have
Hands
hands
up.
raised,
raise hands.
raise of hands.
Can't find my hand.
Okay, is someone counting?
I'm in the car, so I can't safely raise
Okay.
my hand.
Okay. I
I
don't-
was looking for the yellow hand to click on.
5, 6, 7,
Oh, I'm
Okay.
raising my physical hand.
8. I only count 8 or 9, but do we have a count, Keith, on how many eyes we have?
I think I can't see Kevin.
10 and counting.
Yeah, 10 and counting. I think, Anton, if you don't mind, could you switch over from sharing the screen to everybody on the screen as a grid? That may be a little easier to see. There we go. That's easier to see. And I'm up. I can't see Kevin. Raise.
Yeah.
And those who are on, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Of all the people I can see, it's all hands are raised.
And how many participants?
17 out of, we have 1, 2.
24 participants.
Okay, so it looks like we have a majority.
Yes.
So it passes. Okay. So the next item we're moving on is to
Madam-
item 6, approval of amendment to
Well,
articles.
We need to have the vote.
I
That-
thought we had the vote.
That was the closed nomination, so people should vote.
It was,
I thought
Adam
we-
raised your hand, so it was 18 out of,
We have 18 people who voted
right.
of 24. So that was ayes.
No, I think the 18 was a vote, people that raise their hands. The
Hmm.
vote count will come from the polling.
Oh,
The poll is still open, so
if everybody submits the poll, then it'll finish.
We have to submit.
You have to click on all people's names and submit.
Okay.
So has everybody voted? Is there anybody that hasn't voted before I end the poll?
I won't be able to vote because I'm driving and it won't be safe.
Well,
So
you can
Yep.
vote, you can vote
I just-
verbally.
I,
Okay.
And I don't know where to get, so I'm voting verbally aye.
Yeah.
This is Kevin Larson. I vote verbally aye.
All right, any other votes before we close the vote?
Okay.
All right, I'm going to end the poll.
Okay.
The slate is approved.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So we're complete.
Yes, ma'am.
Anton?
Complete.
Okay, so we'll go on to item number 6, approval of amendment to articles of incorporation, purpose statement. Do I have a motion? A motion, and I haven't heard something.
Yes, Madam President, I will make a motion that we approve this, and I'd like to speak to it after we.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I second that motion.
Okay, Jason seconds it. Thank you. So Anton, discussion?
Yes, the board of directors spent considerable amount of time reviewing our mission statement in the original articles of incorporation, which was filed in September of 2019. Basically, Jack Ware and I were the co-founders and basically wrote that initial mission statement. I think as we went through last year, and particularly after we got the strategic plan study from the University of Southern California, that we wanted to make sure that our primary mission is to make sure that these various CBOCs are independent. And we wanted to get that concept into our mission statement. So that is the overall reason that we wanted to revise the language to make sure that our focus, all our efforts are focused on having these CBOCs independent so that they can provide the oversight and report to the public in regards to the expenditure of bond funds. So I would like to just read the proposed amendment. And the motion would be that the California Association of Bond Oversight Committees Articles of Incorporation purpose statement be amended as follows. Quote, the California Association of Bond Oversight Committees is dedicated to the proposition that taxpayers deserve information on proper school bond expenditures through facilitation of independent citizen bond oversight committees in accordance with the passage of Prop 39. Our mission is to develop and deliver support for thorough oversight through training, newsletters, conferences, and workshops, and to represent our collective interests at the statewide level to benefit all Californians. So that is the proposed amendment, Madam President, and I would invite comments at this time.
Okay, do we have, okay. So I see some comments, and Tom were you gonna speak to this? Tom Rubin? I see a
Tom's
hand.
hand was raised, but he may not have put it down.
Okay,
but
and then so.
Most likely it is Mac who actually
Mac
raised his
Moore.
hand.
has a comment. Mac?
Yeah, I was hoping that Anton could describe the differences that he sees between our statement of purpose between the two, sort of, explain the difference in why we need a change.
This is the current purpose statement. A lot of it is similar. In other words, this talks about conferences, workshops, representing interests at state level. I think the major difference is it has the word independent in there. I would think that's connect. I think that's the major difference. You see, a lot of the language is similar.
Okay,
Yeah, and if I could follow a follow-up question on that.
okay.
So I hear that in terms of the kind of the specific idea that bringing in that word independent, but do you see this as leading to a change in the way that, that we have been, operating from a business and strategic planning perspective?
No, I do not. I really think that's been our focus right from the start. I think this is helpful as we look to submitting the grant applications and for purposes to explaining to other folks. But I agree with you. I don't think it changes our focus at all. In fact, I think it reinforces what our focus has been.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There was NSSN, is that?
I think Silas had his hand raised.
Yeah.
Has his hand raised from before. So actually,
Okay.
I suspect it's
So
Nick.
then the next one is Nick. Nick, you're on.
I'm on. I guess I don't know when the opportunity to kind of make the point that I have, and I think the mission statement revision is fine. Of course, I'm not on the board anymore, I guess, but I can still comment. I think it's important, maybe to be mindful, like any successful business or any entity in general, is remember who the clients are. And our clients, in my opinion, are people who know very little about bonds, construction management, project management. We need to start at the base level of, I use the example, our clients, just pick a hypothetical. It's a mother who works at a department store, who has a student in high school, and she doesn't like the way the athletic facilities are being built through the bond proceeds. Her background is not in anything like most of us who are on the board. So as we move forward, I think we need to be mindful in terms of training or whatever material we present to the public, that it is those type of people that are our clients. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a comment.
Okay, comment. Jack?
Thank you. I apologize for not being able to be as active recently as I would have liked. I do have one concern about this, which I'm duty bound to share with the board. I have been active, and I have actually incorporated a number of nonprofit organizations, and under the state of California's laws regarding the incorporation of nonprofits, it has been. I believe that there is a general concept that applies in this case, which is in wording your articles of incorporation, you make sure that you don't unintentionally restrict the kinds of things you can do in the future. So in general, particularly with new organizations sort of feeling their way as they move forward and develop, it's important that you not restrict the kinds of things you can do. And that's one of the reasons the articles of incorporation are so important, because it declares the intentions and the intended purposes of an organization. In other words, it describes the kinds of activities you are allowed to undertake. And my concern is that some of the wording in the proposed amendment could be interpreted to mean all we can do in terms of the activities that we mount are training, publishing newsletters, holding conferences, and workshops. And so that concerns me a little bit. So my suggestion is that the real emphasis in this amendment is on the last statement, which is it's much more general and so to represent our collective interests at the statewide level. So for example, Anton, you noted the fact that we've been very active in lobbying the state treasurer and the legislature to enact some of the recommendations of the Little Hoover Commission. So that, to me, that kind of activity would fall under that last statement, which is to represent our collective interests. That's sort of the coverall here. So I guess my suggestion is, if we approve this amendment to the articles, there's an understanding on the part of the leadership of the organization that it is not our intention to limit or to be limited in terms of the kinds of things we could do to pursue our mission.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? We have Nick. Did you put down your hand or? Okay. At this point in time, I'm going to call for a vote to.
I
have a
think
question.
Lorraine has. her
Oh,
hand up.
Lorraine has, okay.
Yeah. In saying the last part about the statewide level benefit all Californians, I noticed that Anton said that we put in an amicus brief on, so we are doing some legal things, and I don't see anything legal stated in there, should we? Or would that be covered under that last phrase?
No, I think that's definitely covered under that last phase.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Any other?
If you look in the chat, then I think it was Silas that said include the statement.
Okay,
you
so
note
we will
that.
go for a vote. So how do we do the vote? Okay, so all those in favor, raise your hands or put a note on chat. And so we had 24 participants. Has that number changed, Keith?
32 participants at this time.
Okay, so we have 32 participants. So for those in favor, raise your hands. I have my hand up. Uh-oh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Don't forget the people who
21,
can't
22,
raise their
23,
hands.
24. I think we easily have a majority, if not everybody, I can see.
Okay, so we have a majority, so the amendment passes. So moving on.
Carolyn,
Yes,
this is Max. So I would like, I intend to vote no, but would like to
Okay.
have the nays recorded and the abstentions recorded as well.
okay. So any other people wanting to vote no? Okay,
Please lower your hands.
yeah.
Okay. Then there are no nos.
There's
And
one
then-
no, and do we have additional no's?
Only that's one. And then
Okay.
are there any abstentions? Or two
Right, any
no's?
abstaining, okay.
Unless Silas, is your hand up raised for abstention or no? Nope. These are extensions. It's Sally and Paula,
Okay,
2
Thank you.
abstentions.
so anyway, it looks like we have a majority that passes.
I need the actual vote, please. So can you tell me how many yes, no, and abstentions?
Boy,
Keith,
that's-
do you have
yeah,
that?
I know that's the tough part because people are it's moving around. We definitely have, it was 1 no, we have 2 abstentions. And then Tom, are you raising your hand for a comment?
Yes, I am. I'd just like to point out that there are 2 symbols under reactions, and there are various versions of Zoom, so different people may have different options, but there is raise hand, which is what you see by me now. And then there is clapping, which is what you see for me right now. You want to use raise hand, not clapping.
That was one problem because there were a few clapping.
Yeah.
Let's
And
I have a comment.
raise hand makes it much easier because if you raise hand, you are automatically go to the top left of the screen, which makes it much easier to do the counts.
Right.
Also, there's an option with a green check mark for yes, a red for no. So I think that will be easier to identify yays or nays. And then if you don't put anything, that'll be abstaining. I believe that'll be the easiest possible way.
That may be the best because actually, if you
I'm
we already
showing that now.
determined, yeah, we already determined that when we were not everybody's on the same level of Zoom. So let's do it in that context. And so those who are voting for yes, do the check, and then those are no, do the X, and then those who are abstaining, then in terms of the reactions,
Leave it blank.
We're going to do the vote again? Shall we
Yeah, let's do
it?
the vote again if you don't
Okay,
mind.
vote again. So a check mark for yes, a red for no, and then
And
if
blank for
there's-
abstaining.
And blank for abstaining.
abstaining.
Hey, you guys, I don't know where all this stuff are. I don't know what I'm doing.
If you look down at the lower part of your screen, there's something called reactions.
I don't have it.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll just in your case, could you please then write it in the
Type
chat?
it in.
Type it
Yes,
in.
okay. And Christine is
I'm driving up the Waldo grid. I'm not touching. my
okay.
phone.
So are we taking you as a
That would be
yes,
yes.
a yes, no, or abstain?
Christine is
Okay.
so. All right, let's try. Let's look at it again. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me clear out the chat here. This is not going to be looking at that, not that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 checks, 10 checks, 11 checks, 12 checks, and 2 no's.
You also have 3 individuals that raised their hands and couldn't
Right.
find the
I'm seeing the raised hands, so they're not doing the check. So we have to look at the raised hands and the check.
we have Judith, Jack,
1, 2, 3, 4,
Gary
5,
Riddle, Judith Box, Marcus Crawley.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and
L. Tom as well.
16, 17, 18. We have 18 yes, and then we have 2 no. And then for those who are don't have their hand, Christine was yes, 19 yes.
Minus 32.
Minus 32.
Yep.
So that is, we've got 12, and then 12 are 10 are abstaining. So it's a 2 no, 10 abstain, and then that's 20 yes. I think that's what I got.
Oh, so we have 20 yes.
20 yes, 10, 2 no, and then 10 I've got on the abstain.
So if I take 20 divided by 32, the percentage is
Minus.
62%. So it looks like this passes more than 50%, 62. Does that help, Anton?
Yes,
Okay. So are we finished with this item?
yes.
And we'll move item 7. Any
Everybody
comments?
put your hand down.
Oh yeah, and your check marks out.
How do you do the check mark out? Oh,
You just-
okay.
You
You just click
reselect
on
it again.
Okay. Okay, so item 7, comments from members. These are any comments for the good of the organization?
I have a comment.
Okay, yes, Jack.
It's Amadeo. Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Eder Rodriguez from Bassett Unified School District here in Southern California. Also, long member here of the community, lived in the area for multiple times. Here at Bassett, the main purpose of this whole organization is about integrity. Everyone here in this organization has been targeted by the board, kicked off the board, or challenged by the board, or removed by the board. So I, as a former president of this CABOC, I've been busy and slammed. That's why I have not been active, and actually requested to step down due to the fact that I've been assisting my daughter at Fresno State University. I'm a big Bulldog fan at Fresno State. I'm also a member of the Marine Corps League. I'm also the commandant at the Marine Corps League, MCS El Toro, here in Southern California in Orange County. And I'm also a member of other organizations that provide scholarships for students here in the local community. And an 8 to 5 job, and I also have a disabled child with autism. So my plate has been extremely full, and that's one of the major reasons why I decided to step down a while back. And I guess we brought up Ms. Carolyn Castillo. Congratulations, Ms. Carolyn, and thank you. And everybody here, I believe, has the most foot forward here for this organization, but integrity is our most important value here. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Jack, you had a comment you wanted to make?
I just want to congratulate everybody for what I consider to be considerable success in the organization accomplishing what it has so far. And I would point out that this past decade has been extremely tough on many nonprofit organizations for a variety of reasons. But the fact that we have accomplished so much, maybe not everything that we had hoped, but certainly what we have been able to accomplish in spite of the pandemic and a very challenging time in our country and in our state, I think is very, very noteworthy. And I think we should be proud of that. I also want to say I continue to serve on 3 public school district bond oversight committees here in Contra Costa County in the East Bay. And the need for the kind of support we intend to provide has never been greater nor more important. I was recently asked by a new chief business officer of the Mount Diablo School District to provide some training for the Bond Oversight Committee. So I want to testify that the need is as great, if not greater, than ever. And in terms of the scope of our mission, we're talking about potentially billions, if not tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars that are not necessarily being spent the way the voters were promised. So financially, the scope of our mission is tremendous. And one final comment, based on long experience as a corporate manager and as a consultant, I think it's important to remind ourselves where the rubber meets the road is in the actual outcomes and the result of the work that we do. So we have to balance the effort we put into process with the effort that actually produces the kinds of real live outcomes, which means better support, better training, better orientation, and better guidance for those folks serving without compensation on these oversight committees. But bottom line, I want to thank everybody for helping and participating, and congratulate you for a job well done.
Okay, thank you, Jack. And then Lorraine, you had your hand up.
Yes, I would just, I'm not on the legislative committee, but I'd like to make a suggestion. I think it is very important that there's some accountability with the CBOCs in the school districts. I mean, we have the education code, and it says we have to have the statement every year, a compliance statement. Nobody ever looks at it in the government. I'd like somebody who's in charge of the program at the state level, at least get the compliance statements. If they see there's a CBOC that disagrees with one of the articles, then they could get back to them. But now you can say, I don't agree with something, and nothing ever happens because nobody looks at it. So there should be somebody in the state government that checks in on these CBOCs. That's all.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Adam Gonzalez.
Yes, thank you. I'm new to the Oversight Committee. I've been serving for about a year. And to be quite honest with you, I felt awfully overwhelmed about what my duties were. Everything seemed to kind of like happen at a flash. So I'm thanking everyone for giving me something to research. Just listening to you all, I'll do my due diligence, but I will be reaching out via email. That's all.
Thank you, Adam. And then we had, Wendy, you had your hand up?
I would just like to parrot what Amadeo was talking about, integrity. And one of the big problems in the school districts is that the CBOCs are looking at non-auditable data. So training of the members is very, very important, but you have to look at the content of the data that they're looking at.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. And then we have Kevin. Kevin?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, I want to say that I'm very, I wish I could have led the group, or not led the group, but joined at a higher level, but I'm not feeling well, so I'm currently a member. And I did inform the school district that my son attends that there was this meeting by your group today. And I wrote a letter by email to the school board superintendent and the school board. And I said, I would like my letter given to the members of the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee. I got no response. So my concern is this, is when you have a Citizen Bond Oversight Committee of a school district, there's no way to contact them.
That's right.
I think we do have a list of CBOC members throughout the state, so we try to engage them through our mailing list. But I understand.
My comment is this: there should be no problem in any member of the public being able to email the chair of the Citizen Bond Oversight Committee of any school district. When a parent emails the superintendent and a parent emails all the school board, the parent, to let them know, you can join CABOC, there's a meeting they have, just to inform. The parent is denied. So I would like to see this changed in state legislature.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for your comments. I know
Can I
how
put my
difficult it is.
I believe it's Silas next.
What? Someone else?
Just want to put my
SN.
hand up.
SN, if you can unmute. Okay, go ahead. Comments?
Okay, so right now, Silas is not, I
Judith.
think.
Yeah.
Judith.
And so we have Tom.
Tom was probably next, and then I think it's Judith and then Gary, but it's under.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. This is Tom
Let's do
Rubin.
Tom, Judith, and Gary.
We are in total agreement with the requirement that members of the public, parents, etc., must be able to contact the BOC. This is in our best practices. This is in our legislative recommendations. You need to push for it right now on a school district by school district basis. I'll just say we're also about half an hour over when we were going to start our second session.
Right.
So
We
I
need
think
to-
the chair may wish to decide how long we'll allow the comments go on. Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. I think we're done with our comments because we only got a couple of minutes before 11 and we're half an hour late. But our next meeting is going to be January the 14th, 2023. So mark your calendars. And then item 9, adjournment of this meeting for the membership. And then immediately following, we got a couple of minutes. Okay, Jack, you're waving your arm. Yes, unmute. Okay, goodbye. So in a few minutes, we'll be starting the strategic retreat that will be hosted by Greg. So stay tuned and we'll wait a few minutes and then we'll get started with that meeting. I hope you plan to attend. It's going to be very interesting. It's a very good report that we got. Thank you.
Can we just stay on this or do we have to exit and re-enter?
No, I think you can stay on this.
We can stay on this one.
There's,
Thank you.
there's our strategic planning guru, Mr. Greg. I hope I don't get in trouble for running over, sir. I'm gonna get 50 lashes.
No problem from my side. I'll shave some time. It depends on you all. So I'm cognizant of the time. I'm cognizant it's a Saturday. And so, and you guys have already been engaged for 1 hour on Zoom. That's a lot. So I'll try to shave some time as much as possible. Much of what I heard at the end actually comes up in my presentation. So yeah, I'm ready to carry on whenever you guys want to start. Do we need a break? Let's take 2 minutes. Or not.
Hello, Anton, this is Marcus Crawley.
Yes, sir.
I entered this meeting a little bit late because I used the Zoom connection that was sent out this morning and it said the meeting was starting at 10:30.
Yeah, that's the strategic meeting. There was 2 reminders. One was a 10 o'clock reminder and it was at 10:30.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, for us folks that don't pay close attention, I guess we need some bold numbers to look at.
Well, you're gonna get fined.
Oh, so I'm, will an apology do?
No, just make a contribution.
Okay.
Okay, Greg, you should get started.
Okay, so I mean, if we're not going to take a 2-minute breather, that's fine. I'm ready to rock and roll. So let me start. I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. So hopefully you all now are looking at a screen that says, Happy New Year, welcome to the retreat.
Correct.
All right, cool. And Keith, thanks for your help and keep me out of trouble, please.
Yeah, I'll watch over your shoulder, sure.
Okay, good man, good man. Yeah, so let's talk about what we're going to do today. All right, so here's what we're going to do. What's happening and not happening today. So I try to make these as big as possible. Hopefully you can read them. There's going to be some reading. We'll do some communal reading as well as individual reading. Well, let's go through these one by one. We're going to be retreating and we're doing it on Zoom. We're not mingling in person, much to my chagrin. I'm an in-person kind of guy. I would much rather be in a room with y'all. And I'll be moderating retreat style. I'm not teaching a seminar. I'm not lecturing. If I stop talking and you guys don't butt in, that's on you. That's not on me. Please participate. And that's my next guidance to y'all. You must interrupt and interject. Don't raise your hand. I don't want to see raised hands because I'm not looking at anybody on the screen. I'm just looking at my material. So I can't see you raise your hand actually physically. I can't see you raise your hand on Zoom. You got to talk up whenever you have anything to say, and that's fine. I'm not a facilitator that says hold your comments and questions until the end. I want to hear them right away. That makes the retreat successful. We will not be working on an actual strategic plan. Those of you who are experts and expect us to produce the outline of a strategic plan, you will be sorely disappointed today. We're going to explore whether a strategic plan might have value for CABOC. That's really the main purpose here. And we will not be setting goals or timelines. We won't be redistributing priorities or resources. We're going to figure out if those are important and how they dovetail with the strategic plan, but we're not doing that today. So is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Greg?
Sounds great, dude.
Hey, I'd like to test my, oh, it's working now. My voice. I'm in.
That's perfect. Dogs can chime in too. I love dogs. Okay, so let's try our hands at some new stuff. Let's take a shot here. So we're going to start getting into a little bit of meat. And the first thing I wanted to do is, here's some nice aphorisms from people we know. Why do strategic planning? One of the great strategic planners of all time, Dwight Eisenhower, said, plans are worthless. But planning is everything. I happen to abide by that. And then one of our favorite heavyweight boxers of all time, also a sometime cannibal when he bites people's ears off. Everybody has plans until they get hit for the first time. Absolutely correct for a boxer. They all go in thinking they're going to be heavyweight champions of the world, and when they get hit, their plan is out the door. We'll come back to these because I want to level set this, whether this makes sense. Okay, so there, let me call up our agenda today. Okay, so there's my first 5 minutes. Welcome to the retreat. What's going to happen? This was all sent out to you in advance, but let's just go over it quickly. I've got a moment for operational excellence. That's coming up next. We'll shave some time there. And then the three meaty pieces of the agenda right here. Review the survey results. Thank you for those who participated. We're going to review the USC study. That's your foundational document right now for strategic planning. And then we're going to see what else might apply for CABOC moving forward. And then we'll have some closeout items. So that's our agenda today. So let's go into this, what the heck is a moment for operational excellence? So here's our first chance for some communal reading, okay? What the hell does this mean? Why would we even do this? This is actually a best practice that I picked up in my previous life. Oh, sorry. Here's where the presenter has to get his act together. Let me go back to the agenda. You all will get copies of this documentation at the end, or I'll pass it on to CABOC and they can diffuse it. So here's, for those of you interested, who the hell is Greg Vizino? Here's my brief resume. I live in El Cerrito. I've been a member of a CBOC. I've been a member of CABOC. I worked for Chevron for my entire career. You can see my background. And I've got degrees, as my wife says, you have degrees coming out the yin yang, Greg. How come you're not smarter than you are? So let's go back to the moment for operational excellence. This is a best practice from my time at Chevron. So what the hell does this mean? What is this? Why do we do this? The purpose of these moments, which I'll describe briefly in a second, is to infuse your organization's culture with a sense of mutual caring, mutual responsibility for excellence in all your operations. So for example, just getting by, doing the minimum, letting it slide, good enough, we'll fix it later, can all become practices of the past. Operational excellence becomes the rule, not the exception. It's part of the organization's DNA. That's what I mean by culture. It's the way you behave normally. You strive for excellence in everything you do, and getting by or fixing something later just doesn't cut it. So what is this thing? That's why you do it. What are they? It's an opportunity for some individual in a meeting, this is done at every meeting, share an organizational best practice, or sorry, operational best practice to start every meeting, 1 to 5 minutes with the topic chosen and the content produced and presented by any attendee at the meeting. It should not usually be the senior manager in the room or on the Zoom call, nor should it regularly be the facilitator of the agenda or the agenda owner. So you might take a moment or 2 or 3 to share what excellence actually looks like in product quality, customer relations, system reliability, teamwork and communications, health and safety, budget management, decision-making. Oh, Vizino, what the hell are you talking about? This is what I mean. Here's a good, simple example for CABOC. So this is what me, for example, as a participant in your legislative committee meeting, when the chair says, does anybody have an operational excellence moment? I would raise my hand and I would say, yeah. One thing we could do to improve the operational excellence of CABOC is to acknowledge receipt of all emails and texts, whether a direct recipient, a copied recipient, or a blind copy. Do not reply all, just simply acknowledge that you got the note, one-on-one back to the sender. This was implemented at Chevron way back in the mid-90s, and believe me, it changed behavior. You stopped copying everybody in the world, and you stopped having information end up in the ethersphere with nobody taking advantage of what you were sharing. So I'm going to pause. Remember, blurt, questions, comments.
How could you implement that? I mean, we've got a lot of different folks running a lot of different meetings.
It's 1 minute at the start. I can tell you, Anton, my experience is that at the beginning, people, first of all, they'll say, well, I don't know anything about this. I don't want to participate. It seems silly. It seems stupid. But you, for example, chairing a committee, you could start by saying, hey, does anybody have an operational excellence moment? What can we do? What has somebody done in their personal life or have they experienced in their business life that made things operate better than they had in the past? And so it'll start slow, but eventually what happens, Anton, this has been my experience, is a meeting facilitator will start on their agenda and 5 hands will go up and go, wait a minute, we haven't had our OE moment. When that happens, then you know that the culture of the organization has become to get infused with this idea of excellence.
Should we put it on each agenda so we remember to do
Sure.
it?
That's the way most agendas ended up. Is the first item on the agenda was 1 minute, an operational excellence moment.
Mm-hmm. Great idea.
So again, this document will be sent out to you all. I've included some backup information. So operational excellence, what does that mean? Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. It's not just safety. And then here's some information for you all. These come from Chevron. They don't have to apply to CABOC, but I think some do apply to CABOC. Always meet or exceed customer requirements. Now that's an element of operational excellence that almost any organization that has customers should aspire to. Always comply with applicable rules and regulations. Well, you're a 401c3 company. You got to do, or organization. You got rules and regulations you have to abide by. Always address abnormal conditions. There's no more abnormal condition now than the coronavirus, and so y'all are meeting by Zoom. So you've actually addressed that. Always involve the right people in decisions. So those are some things that, I kind of looked at this and I said, yeah, these probably do have relevance for CABOC. That would be for you all to decide.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, one major element of operational excellence is personal safety, both on the job and for office workers at the office, or now people working from home. So let me give you a flavor. These are just 10 that I brainstormed from my own brain, always a dangerous thing. These 10 actually were the first 10 that jumped to my mind that I could remember from my days at Chevron. Safety moments. How to adjust your mirrors. You go, what's that got to do with the operation of Chevron? Well, it keeps people safe when they're driving and you don't have an employee injured in an accident. So there's a whole bunch of them. 6 tips for beating Zoom fatigue. Safe driving here. Apropos of the season that just ended, I actually use a technique for my Christmas tree that I picked up from Chevron in 1985. I still use it. Okay, so there they are, personal safety. But back here now, these are things beyond just personal safety. And then here's the one that might work as a starting point for you all. And then once you all agree, this is actually an operational best practice, then you have to abide by it. When somebody sends you a note from CABOC, you hit a reply immediately. Yes, thank you very much. I got this. All right. With that, I'm going to end that. That's my pitch for infusing your culture with OE. So now let's go back to the agenda. We're on the survey results, the world famous survey results. First of all, do all of you here at the meeting today know what the survey was? Did you receive the survey? Here's what the survey looked like. Please take 5 minutes to fill out 3 questions. And then how important is CABOC, or how important is it for CABOC to develop and employ strategic plans, all the way from very important to no opinion. What do you know about the USC study? It's been referenced. So somebody might know a lot and somebody might say, hey, I never even heard of the damn thing. So all shades in between. And then the third question, what do you personally know about strategic planning? So I know a lot, or I've got 0 experience, and shades in between. So those were the questions. I learned from your organization that about 3,000 or so people received the link to this survey. And the last results I saw were that 16 people nicely chose to take the time to fill in the survey results. So I'm going to pull those results up now. I'll take a little pause, and anybody who has anything to say, please jump in.
So I'm somewhat confused. I took the survey. I wasn't told about the 10 o'clock meeting. I got on late, and there was a screen up that had my name. It said 78%, like I didn't complete the survey, but I completed the whole survey. So I'm somewhat lost.
Okay, Christine, I'm sympathetic to that, Christine. I don't know what to say because I did not manage the distribution of the survey nor the collection of the results. So I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
I'll make a note. Let me do this, Christine. Let me make a note and take this offline after this retreat, if that's okay.
Okay, it's Laura.
So Greg, did
Oh,
I hear?
Laura, I'm sorry. My mistake, Laura.
That's okay, Greg.
Greg, did I hear you correctly? 3,000 links were sent and only 16 people replied?
I'll defer to Anton, but that's the way I read the data that Anton sent me.
Yes, that's correct.
How can we change that?
Yeah, let me do this, Silas. So I said everybody should blurt it. That's a good question. This is a good time actually to address that, because obviously 16 out of 3,000, that's not a statistically significant sample. And I believe the data Anton sent me also allowed us to check on, of the 3,000 that received the link to the survey, how many people clicked on it. And that number was also very small, but even of those who clicked on it, only 16 filled it in.
I'm wondering if our list is pretty accurate.
Well, the list we sent it to are the CBOC members and people who have subscribed to the newsletter. So I mean, the list is our standard list. My sense is a lot of people, don't understand strategic planning or what we're even talking about.
But this is sort of like a trial run. How about if we do some follow-up with the CBOC chair people to see if they got the list and what their, feedback from their members, and just give them a survey. Did your members get this list? Did they, et cetera, for future reference, since this was such a poor return?
Yeah,
Did you send it?
My sense is most CBOCs are not concerned with strategic planning for our organization. They have more immediate issues. I think probably as we go along, first of all, we ought to probably initially focus on the board and see if the board, we ought to probably redo the survey with the board members and hopefully get, responses from all the board members. I think would be a good start.
I would ask how you sent this out and whether a lot of them went to spam or, I don't know if they're going to personal emails or work emails or what have you, but I don't know what districts do. Do they give them an email address? A lot of times if they get a mass email, then they're going to go into their spam folder and they're not going to see it.
Okay, our database is through Constant Contact and it goes to individual CBOC members. We do not send emails to the district to give to the CBOC. But the problem we have a number of districts who refuse to give us the email addresses for their CBOC members. We use the Public Records Act request to do this. But we have districts who will have their attorney write us a letter saying that that's private information. But the 2,000 CBOC members that we do have on the database, it goes directly to their email address. Now, when we sent that survey out, we got probably maybe each time we send it out, we get a couple additions and a couple people who unsubscribe, but that's like 3 or 4. So my sense is everybody got it. It's a pretty good list.
But Anton, you can look in Constant Contact to determine whether people opened it and
Yes.
see if they opened it. So
yes, we had 59 opened it.
yeah, so that's sort of if only 59 are reading it, then you have a problem. A lot of them are probably going to spam folders.
Perhaps it's just something about how it is headlined so that people are interested in opening it.
Greg,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, let's not lead. Yeah, okay. You all are carrying on right now. I'm listening.
But
I
getting
have
back,
I have a comment. I'm Kevin Larson. I have a comment.
Have a,
Okay, so I've been around this a long time. I have a child that's attended 2 school districts, and I've attended many of these meetings by the Citizen Oversight Board Bond Committee. The only way to break through, and there are some very earnest and well-intentioned members at the Citizen Bond Oversight Committees at the school districts. The only way to break through is to attend the meeting and to hand out all of the CABOC information, like, hello, I'm attending this meeting. You announce your name. We're under Brown Act. I request to hand you each of you members, a folder that has CABOC information. You may be unaware of this group. And then you let your letter speak for you. It's put in their hands. They take it home. Some of the members are very, very earnest, but they have no idea who CABOC is. And quickly to conclude here, I did humbly request with emails to the school board and the superintendent, I stated this earlier, I would like my letter to be given to CABOC members so they can attend this retreat. And I got no response. So that is really a response. When you get no response, you get a response. And the response is, and I will do this just so you know, and I'll report back, to attend the CABOC committee meeting and to hand each member, you don't have to put it in a folder, you just staple it, like 3 pages of what CABOC is and how it's a wonderful organization and they can join for free.
Adam Gonzalez here. I just want to cut in a little bit. At my oversight meeting, I'm one of very few that actually attends in person, but for the most part, most people are Zooming in. So the only logistics problem you're going to have with putting something in hand is that you're going to have to mail it to their personal address since most people are Zooming into their meetings. As far as people not clicking on and doing the survey, when I read your email, I actually read through your email and then I found it and I did it. So I am one of the 16 that did it. But if you just look at that email that was sent, there is very little difference between that email and other emails that I get from the BSC. So I just wanted to let that, people have to read through and do their own work to see it. And that's probably why we haven't had a lot of participation.
Ruben here.
Excuse me.
Hold on.
Laura, actually, let's and everybody's jumping in, but I think Laura has her hand up, and then please start putting your hand in. Just
so getting back to strategic planning, you know, I've seen it done different ways, and there's one organization, local organization, very strong, that's been around a long time. And what they do is they do 2 sessions. They do one with just the board members to kind of get the broad, you know, goals and stuff for the next year. And then they do a second session with the membership. And then the members are able to add and maybe, you know, volunteer for committees or whatever. So that's one model that I've seen that works out here. You know, it seemed like it would be a little bit more difficult to do strategic planning with everybody. You know, usually there's kind of a core group that, you know, does most of the work, and then other members, you know, do what they can to support. But anyway, so I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, and this is Greg and Kevin, before we take up other commenters, this is Greg, and I just want to, so as your moderator, the retreat moderator, we're starting to work issues around actual strategic planning. And remember, one of the admonitions at the front is we are not doing strategic planning today. So how you all decide to take on strategic planning, if you even choose to take it on, suggestions like you're making, Laura, that's where that would come to play. And this is actually all very fruitful conversation. So I don't mean to shut you down. I just want to make a clarification. For the purposes of this retreat, you are working a strategic planning issue. How do you go about doing it, as opposed to do you actually need or want to do it? So that's all I'm going to comment. And I didn't mean to shut that off. I don't mean to shut it down. I would now welcome Kevin. If you can help moderate the rest of the commentary, that'd be great.
Okay, here's what I think, and I want to make it very clear. I've been at this for like 5 years. I just found out about CABOC maybe 3 months ago, 5 months ago. But my point is this, is I want to say it one more time, it's so crucial, that the citizen oversight bond committees at the school district, there are several members out of maybe, I don't know how many, that are very earnest, but have no idea who CABOC is. So I take it upon myself to attend the meeting, and there's one coming up January 19th, which is not Zoom, which is strange. Even if it was Zoom, I can still speak under the Brown Act and say, I'd like to speak for 2 minutes on CABOC, how you can join it, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So in my opinion, in order for this group to really grow, the key point is for people like me, Kevin, to attend the Citizen Bond Oversight Committees to utilize the Brown Act and to speak during my time to explain what CABOC is, even if I don't hand out materials. And that way the earnest people on the committee will look it up and maybe join CABOC. And that's all I have to say on that.
May I interrupt right now? Greg, you're still monitoring. There's 3 people in that are raised their hands right now, starting with Tom. May I also say that if you have any ideas that are coming into play right now, also, since this is being recorded, also put it in the chat too, so we can make sure that we cover everything. So there's like multiple streams going on.
Yeah.
So I think, Tom, go ahead.
Thank you. Facilitator asked that we do not use hands up. However, of 28 people and everybody trying to jump in, I think it would be better if we did. 2 things. We have been having a general discussion of how do we get through? How do we get our message across? I think that is very specific to what we're trying to do today. If it's not the biggest point, it's certainly a main one. If you can't get communications out, then no one even knows you exist. We've had a number of discussions on problems with the survey. Why don't we leave the details of that for another time, rather than have everybody here get on that? I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, I think Keith said we had 2 more people in the queue to comment, and then I do want to move on. So
Oriana, I think that's you.
Yeah, Urania. I think that by law, the CBOC should have a website. We put something on their website about CABOC. And also, I think, even though not many people read newspapers, I think a press release in the newspapers will be very important for not only CABOC members, but the community to understand, to know what we are doing and who we are.
Hey, Greg, I think it's back to you.
Oh, okay. I was writing a note there. Okay, so I know Tom said let's kind of defer the results of the survey, and so I took that on board, and what I'd like to do is just briefly go over, even though it's only 16, there is some fruitful information, and actually we'll do it quickly, and I should be done by, I'm supposed to be done at 11:30 on this topic. So we're almost there. So that means I've kind of caught up almost. So let me do this with all due respect to Tom Rubin. Let me pull up the results nonetheless. So here's what we've got. And so obviously more results provide more robustness to the conclusions that can be drawn. But my purpose here is not to actually draw firm conclusions, because 16 respondents is way below an acceptable number of respondents. If you have a population of 3,000, the ideal response rate is about 10%. You'd like to have 300 surveys filled in, not 16. But so I don't want to read too much into this, but nonetheless, here are the results. So let me just go through the table first. Knowledge of strategic planning. Here are the 16 responses, all the way from 4 have a lot to actually none of the 16 said, I don't know anything about it. Now I would draw the conclusion that means the 16 people who responded are those who have experience with strategic planning. That's not a surprise, not to me anyway. Then how many are aware of the USC study? Well, 3 were very aware, and there are 4 and 7 down here in the I know very little or I've never heard of it category. And then for the third question, how important is it? So one answer I think was along the lines of it should be your top priority at CABOC. Well, 7 of the 16 said that's the case. 3 said, well, it should be in the top 3 priorities. And then you've got the remaining 6 responses down here. So here is how, for example, I would go about interpreting the results without reading too much into it. So here's my interpretation of the results. I'll keep the table on the top so we know what we're talking about.
How are you?
So we've got 16 respondents, less than 1% of the total. This is not necessarily a reflection of CABOC engagement, but might rather be a reflection of the appetite for survey taking or strategic planning during the first 10 days of the year. You all have actually highlighted some other issues. Maybe the surveys are not being received properly. Maybe they're being kicked out. Maybe they're going to spam. I don't know what other reason there are, but anyway, my admonition to the group is beware of drawing false conclusions. Keep it simple. So I don't read any more into that than, well, we got 16. So let's work with what we have. So what percent of respondents knows a lot about strategic planning? Percent of respondents, not percent of 3,000, but percent of 16. Well, here it is, it's 4. So 25% of the respondents have firsthand knowledge of strategic planning. So if you had a larger sample, this number here would be would allow you to determine who might lead strategic planning for CABOC. So I'll let you all cogitate on that, and then I'm going to move on. So the next set of conclusions has to do with the 69% over here. What percent of respondents know little or nothing of the USC study? Well, 70%, 69%. So this could point to more in-depth session on the USC study, and we'll kind of do that this morning or this afternoon. We're creeping up on the afternoon. As a way to bring people up to speed. So the fact that these numbers down here, I know very little or I know nothing about the USC study, that to me, as the CABOC organization, is problematic. Because now you have people who know a lot about strategic planning and who think it's very important for CABOC, and the same volume of people here knowing a lot actually don't know much
Who's
about
that?
the USC study. That's problematic.
What's
That's
he
the
up
way I
to?
interpret this.
Nick, could you
Did he
please mute
sound
yourself?
lucid?
Nick, could you please mute yourself?
Are you nervous?
Nick.
He's lost connectivity.
Okay.
All right, and then the third conclusion, again, conclusion in air quotes, okay? You've got how many people think it's important that CABOC actually engage in the strategic planning process and produce a plan? Well, this is actually very encouraging. There were 7 who said it should be the top priority and 3 who said it should be in your top 3 priorities. So that's 10 out of 16. That's, what is that, 5/8? That's 63%. So if this is not a significant percentage, then that may indicate that you're not ready for strategic planning now. But again, with the philosophy of trying to keep things simple, the fact that 10 people out of 3,000 recipients think it's in your top 3 priorities, I'm not prepared to draw that conclusion, nor do I think you all should be prepared.
Greg, I'm going to interrupt for a second. It's Jason Hunter out of the Riverside County area. I'm just going to repeat for the folks who haven't been able to see my comment that I just posted in the chat. I don't think it's important whether the CABOC, individual CABOC members throughout California have taken the survey. I don't think it's important at all, whether that 3,000 number is the number that's insignificant. I think it's only important that the CABOC members who form this organization take that survey, quite frankly. And given that perspective, my guess is 16 is probably much more significant. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Jason. We promised all the respondents anonymity, so I have no clue who those 16 respondents are. So yeah, you may well be right, Jason, that it is board members or strategic advisors, and maybe that is the sample size you want.
I think Tom just raised his hand, and then it's Mark.
Thank you. First of all, to clarify, my comment on the survey previously was, let's not spend a lot of time on why we got such a low response. The survey is very important. I was one of the people who did respond. I think what we may be seeing here is because of the very wide distribution to get it out, we got a lot of people who responded who knew little or nothing about CABOC. And if you're going to do a survey that particularly gets into strategic planning, et cetera, I'm not sure that is a people you want to be asking. They don't know enough about the organization or what we do. I think, like me, when I responded, I said it was very important. I think a lot of the other people who have been active probably responded in the same way. It was important. So I agree with what you said. Be very careful in looking at the results of a very small survey. Look at it, use it, but don't take it as gospel.
Right. Thanks, Tom.
I think Mark.
My approach to this is that when you're asking about what an organization should do, and most of the people you send it to don't know about the organization, I don't think that you can get great information. I think the question is for this group and for the board, because a strategic plan is usually a board document for a board to figure out what they're doing and what their priorities are. And so if the survey were asked, if these three questions were asked of the folks attending this retreat, I think, and I think they should be, you will get the sense of whether this group is ready for strategic planning and wants to do it. And so I would just recommend polling everyone here and seeing what the response is, instead of worrying about people in oversight committees throughout California, because if they're not actively involved in CABOC, they're not going to respond.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I mean, that's a point well taken. I mean, that's a classic for surveying, right? Is what's the sample population? So we selected the entire CABOC sphere of customers in constant contact, and maybe, or your suggestion is that's probably not the right population to be surveying, and I have no way of checking that, but your point is well taken. Hard to argue with.
I think Wendy, you are up right now.
Yeah.
Then it's Adam.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if all 16 respondents are in this meeting now, because I did the survey. I actually looked at the survey first, and then I wanted to complete reading the USC study. So then I went back in to do the survey. I'm wondering if it's even been received, but with so few people answering, it occurs to me it's the people that are involved that are probably participating in this meeting. Thank you.
Thanks.
Adam, I think you're on. Then Nick, and Adam, you're still muted.
Thank you. Adam Gonzalez here. Okay. So perhaps maybe I'm confused. Maybe I shouldn't have participated in your questionnaire there, because I just sit on an oversight committee board. To be quite honest with you, I signed in today because I'm kind of confused with the whole process, and I'm trying to do my due diligence to understand everything that is required of me. So if my input, and I'm not well, I think I am a board. I don't know where I fit in. So if I'm not needed here, or if I'm not supposed to be here, I'd be happy just to leave and not waste anybody else's time.
Okay, I think
Adam,
Nick.
as the moderator of the retreat, I am not responding to that comment. I mean, I have my opinion, but this is not my organization. And so if someone wants my opinion, I'll express it, but I'm not going to address that directly, Adam, until somebody from the organization speaks.
Oh, I just I don't want to be the gadfly here. So and you guys know awfully a lot more. I have a lot of more. I have some more educating of myself to do before I continue on with this. Thank you very much for your information.
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and bow out now, gentlemen. And I appreciate everything that I've heard.
Information, may I break here? My name's Les Bronte, and I'm the new kid on the block.
Okay, thank you. I think, Nick, you're up next, then Lorraine.
Yeah, thank you, Keith and Greg. I think, I think safe assumption that the survey that was filled out was largely people within under the tent or under umbrella of CABOC, either a director or advisor. It's the kind of thing, I think if you're an oversight member, you saw that, it'd be daunting, and then you'd read, have you read the USC study? And the answer is undoubtedly no, and it was just too much. So I think I view this as a two-step process, and whether it can be done sequentially, maybe redone or whatever, is the community of our database. I think we need to get back to develop a strategic plan. You need to have an idea, in my opinion, of what do the oversight committees need. And so that if we're going to go out and survey what, oversight committees, it ought to not be whether we need a strategic plan, is what do you need from CABOC in order for you to do your job? And once you have that data on what is needed, then you can mold your strategic plan and resources around what the requirements of the clients are. So I think maybe separate from this meeting, and and I'm not part of the directors, it's the director decision. That's the kind of process I would envision before we get to the thing of what should the strategic plan be, or whether we need it in the first place.
Fair enough. Hold that thought, Nick, because we'll get to that towards the end, assuming we get to the end in a reasonable time. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree.
Lorraine?
I just wanted to reiterate what Tom and Nick and Adam are saying. I think the audience for a strategic plan is the directors and is the top of the organization. Most CBOC members are joining because they need training and they want to have a source for it. They don't care about your strategic plan or what a strategic plan is. So they're interested in what can you do for me? And so I think the audience for this whole discussion of strategic plans should be at the upper level, not the total membership. That's all.
I think that's it on the queue.
Okay, so let me just show, and no presentation for me can be complete without at least one graph. So I'm going to show a very quick graph. So now here in a graphical presentation with colors and lines is actually the summary, the overall summary of the results. So again, don't read into this. If there were 60 responses, this might be important.
Yeah.
But anyway, each of the colors refers to one of the three questions. So here under a lot, that's one of the answers for each of the, I know a lot about strategic planning, that's a blue bar. I know a lot about the USC study, that's this orange bar. And I know a lot, or I think strategic planning is very important to CABOC, that's the yellow bar. So for you all, here's the three questions agglomerated around a lot all the way down to none or declined to state. And in an ideal world, you might expect these, and so now here, 29%, what does that mean? This number of answers where all three of the questions were graded a lot by survey takers, that's 30% of the total number of responses. And so I actually, if this were more robust, I would look at this and say, wait a minute, you got 30% who say all three of those questions are a lot of importance to CABOC, and then another 25%. So between these two, almost 50% of your respondents say strategic planning is very important, and I know a lot about it, to it's very important, not extremely important, very important. And so that's very encouraging. So you could conclude, hey, CABOC's ready to rock and roll on strategic planning. I choose not to conclude that, but that's a potential conclusion. So here's just a visual explanation on trying to help decide as your organization or your top deck, as Lorraine put it, whether you're ready to rock and roll on strategic planning. And at that, I would like to leave this, if that's okay. We've kind of beaten this to death, I think. So let me close this down and get back to the next piece, which is the USC study, the world famous USC study. Okay, so here Anton asked me quite some time ago, you can see it's back at the end of October, coming up on Halloween. So I don't know what kind of mood I was in when I did this, but could CABOC use its own strategic plan? Well, check it out. And then here's my synopsis of the 67-page USC study. And so I want to go through this in some detail, because this may be the only time that many of you are exposed to the USC study. So I've summarized what I could in 3 pages. So could CABOC use its strategic plan? Well, USC certainly thinks so. Here's the title of their study. And then I asked the question, why does USC think so? So here's my own personal view based on USC's results as to why they think it could be of value to CABOC. And I want to start off, and I'll take 2 minutes of dead air time for you all, everyone here on the screen, to just read this block right here as to what a strategic plan is, because I've been a strategic planner for 30 years. This is the most succinct definition I've heard or read anywhere, so it's very valuable. Okay. So this is my comment, my personal comment as part of the synopsis. This is as good as it gets regarding the proper and intended use of a good strategic plan. So now the question back to you all is, if you buy into this from USC, if you understand what they're saying and why they're saying it, or if you think CABOC already does many of these things, they establish goals, you track progress over time, you self-assess so that you can improve the redistribution of resources where they are most efficient, then it could well be that you all at CABOC are doing strategic planning or engaged in strategic processes and you don't even know it, at least consciously know it. I don't know if that's the case or not. This is your organization, not mine. And then here, actually, again, we'll spend I'll read this through. Now, here's another perspective on strategic planning from an organization that's been around for however many years this is, 90, what is this, 90, oh, I can't do it, 94 years. The California Association of School Business Officials speaks equally well to the value to them of strategic planning, which they call organizational planning. So they call it CASBO, that's their organization, CASBO by design. For the past 16 years, CASBO has been dedicated to organizational planning as a method for guiding the association into a successful future. Last year, the association completed its 6th such plan, now here's corporate language coming in, right? A living, breathing document. I love that, a living, breathing. I always try to picture a piece of paper living and breathing. That guided the association in its long-term planning process, which is grassroots in nature. So i.e. coming up from the organization, not delivered top down, invigorating in procedure and motivating in outcome. That's great. If you can do strategic planning and that's the way your people react, that's great. Work on our next strategic plan will begin in 2021. CASBO has long been committed to organizational planning because the approach has consistently helped the organization envision its future and determine clear steps to get there. That's the key. You got to have clear steps. That's the plan. The roadmap that strategic planning provides has allowed CASBO to remain focused on its unique mission, goals, and objectives, and to respond effectively to continually changing environments. And you remember, that's actually a key element, continually in changing environments. If you look at what USC says, allow you to improve through the redistribution of resources where they are most efficient. Okay, so that's what CASBO is saying. Well, we do that. We know the environment changes, we reallocate priorities and people. So here again is my personal synopsis. So there you have it, a simple, clear paragraph from USC on the use, and two simple, equally simple and clear testimonial paragraphs from CASBO on the value of such plans. So I'll stop there if anybody has anything they want to interject before we get into the, okay, so now then what's the relationship between the USC study and CABOC? Okay.
Greg, Lorraine here. What is the background on this USC study? It seems Anton said it didn't cost anything. It seems back in August, somebody from the organization asked them to do the feasibility study for it. It isn't an actual strategic plan.
That's correct.
That's what I've gotten out of this.
That's correct.
Okay.
We'll get into that next, Lorraine. Thank you. You're the perfect straight person for me.
You can pay me later.
I will.
I think we have Carolyn first.
Yeah. Greg, just like you, on one of my job titles, I had the job title of strategic planner. And believe me, I'm a real big advocate of having strategic plans because it gives you the roadmap. It gives you these horizons of timelines that you have to look at how your organization operates. I always look at 2, 5, and 10. And the reason you do that is to make sure you have growth in the organization and you're taking action to sort of develop and deploy your services to whoever your stakeholders are. So I do believe that it's important to have a strategic plan. And it's something that for us, it was like a 1-year planning period, 2 years to implement, and then 5 years to reassess, and 10 years was where we wanted to be. So I always liked the strategic planning process. That's it.
Cool.
Les Bronte here.
Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, this question on the strategic plans, are there modifications? I know they're bond related, but are there modifications when dealing with different industries, or is the core still always remain the same?
Yeah, the fundamentals remain the same. In fact, again, you're right there with Lorraine. Thank you very much for being a perfect segue into the part coming up. The fundamentals of strategic planning are irrespective of industry. The specifics, obviously, of the plan, that depends on whether you're with a school district, whether you're with a volunteer organization like CABOC, you're with a for-profit organization like I was at Chevron, a very big organization, or you're with a small startup here in Silicon Valley. Obviously, the specifics will be different, but the core concepts are the same. And again, I'll go back. This is what a strategic plan does. Strategic plans are an efficient way for organizations to establish goals. So the goals for any given organization will be different. Every industry will have, and every company within an industry will have different goals. And they're related to time. You're going to achieve something today and you're going to achieve something 2 years from now. They're critical to tracking progress over time and allowing the organization to self-assess. That's important. Are you making progress towards your goals? Are you 10% there after using up 90% of your time? Allow some more time. But no, it's a very important. We have to do this today. We're supposed to be done by the deadline. Well, now you got to throw people at it to get it done. And do you have the people to throw at it? and improve through the so I just described this, improve through the redistribution of resources where they are most efficient. So the guiding principle here is I hope as we go further forward becomes clearer and clearer. So this applies to any organization intent on actually laying out its strategy moving forward. The specifics will differ. Does that help?
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, so let's get to CABOC. And Lorraine was exactly right. USC did not give you a strategic plan. They did not do your strategic planning for you. What they did is highlight some areas that might be forefront in your own strategic plan. So here's what they said. The 5 recommendations from USC, which I've bulleted here below. So you'll see these big, bold bullets. So we'll come to these. But in essence, they made 5 recommendations for where CABOC might want to focus its strategic exercise, but they can be put in 2 broad categories, which is actually a great thing for CABOC, because now you got to focus on 2 things, at least conceptually. And it's also useful for the public, because now the public says, well, what are you guys focused on? You say, hey, we're focused on 2 things, improving our own organizational capabilities and delivering on your purpose. That's what, I mean, here in this box. I mean, this is not rocket science. It actually did not surprise me. I have a lot of experience. So this did not surprise me. The way USC went about getting to this conclusion was very rigorous and yet very user-friendly. Actually, their 67-page report is quite easy on the eyes to read in most cases. So that's it. That's what USC is recommending as your most immediate planning objectives at CABOC. I mean, really, how simple is that? Can or should CABOC dig any deeper? Or should it just continue advancing on multiple fronts, managing resources on an ad hoc basis? So now I kind of give my, not kind of, I do give my own insights or whatever you, or BS as the case may be, on the 2 main buckets of strategic imperatives: improve yourselves organizationally and then deliver on your purpose. And then, so then I say, continually improve the organization's capability. This is an internally focused strategy and is extremely common across organizations. Extremely common, especially for startups. Although the 4 elements recommended by USC are specific to CABOC. So here are the 4 elements. So to improve your organizational capability, you need to have succession planning in place. It's an aging organization. You're relying on a lot of key individuals who are not going to be doing this 10 or 15 years from now, or even 5 years from now. So succession planning, this was a key element at Chevron. So a huge organization, you'd think they'd have succession planning down pat. They did not. So succession planning, also known as personnel development, replacing planning, leadership development. USC applies this to your current personnel. So they're talking about, and they had 2 or 3 specific people in mind. So here's my questions though, as part of strategic planning. What about key positions not currently in place? You're going to have positions down the line, like maybe a webmaster, a librarian or archivist, an event manager. You're going to have new positions. And so what do you do to make sure you have a constant pipeline of people to do them? And most importantly for startups, this is extremely important. Where is your institutional memory currently housed? And where are you going to house it in the future when those people are no longer around? Then USC talked a lot about finances and the idea of having a financial consultant. I believe you all have spoken about this internally at CABOC. I'm not sure what the outcomes were, but my question, based on what USC says, is the consultant, is the recommended consultant actually the means to an end, i.e. raising more money for operations Or was USC recommending a consultant because CABOC needed that expertise as an adjunct to their own in-house means of raising funds? In other words, are they talking about a consultant kind of running fundraising for you? Or are they talking about somebody with some expertise in raising money for nonprofits, kind of working hand in hand with you on the ground? I don't know the answer to that.
Mhm.
Performance metrics. This is extremely important. So this is how you self-assess. This is what they're talking about. If I go back to, sorry about jumping around, but I want to go back to this. Allowing the organization to self-assess. What does that mean, self-assess? It means you're measuring yourself against what you've decided are your measures of success. Key performance metrics, that's what this is. Or commonly known as KPIs. Many of you may have heard this, key performance indicators, which are data-driven measures. You got to be able to quantify it and capture information about the organization's behaviors, activities, and progress toward delivering on your purpose. And then I make my own observation. These are not easy, are not usually self-evident, and are also important to sustained success. So that's me as your moderator today, passing the buck back to you all. I know it's hard, but I don't have the answer. And then finally, the fourth one within organizational capabilities, your organizational structure. USC talks a lot about this, but the main outcome is form should follow process. What are you all doing? How do you go about doing it? And based on that, how do you organize yourself? I know you all have a lot of committees, subcommittees, ad hoc committees, different points of decision-making. That may be fine. It served you well for 2 years, but there is an imperative to actually consciously look at your organizational structure and make sure it serves your mission and your purpose. So CABOC should ask itself, what organizational structure, what key positions best facilitate delivering on your purpose? So those are the four main items that USC highlighted with respect to your own internal organizational capabilities. And then the other bucket of recommendations, which is an externally focused strategy. By that, I mean, you're not looking internally at your organization, you're looking externally at your customers. Focus on your purpose. And USC called out training, development, and deployment. They didn't call out other parts of your purpose. They specifically called out training, development, and deployment. So I call it out here. These are my questions. What about your other purposes? For example, being a statewide champion for real and lasting CABOC independence, formation of regional CBOC groups, representing common interests. Where do these fit into your overall strategy? In other words, what are their priorities and how do you time delivering on them? So with that, I want to come down, and this, I hope, will help focus us some more on the conversation coming ahead. Finally, any CABOC strategic plan is only as good as its implementation and its effective deployment, i.e. the execution of the plan. So here are my questions for CABOC. If you were to move forward with strategic planning, these are some things you might want to think about. To successfully improve your organizational capabilities, these four elements, so the ones we talked about, financial consultants, succession planning, key performance indicators, and organizational structure. So these four elements and any other which you may choose to add or subtract should be ranked in order of importance and timing for delivery. Once you start doing that, now you're strategic planning. Or can they or much less should they, be worked in parallel with one another? Can you actually do all four of those in parallel with your resources? Does the current organization and membership have the capacity and the capabilities to work them in parallel? So what do I mean? The capacity, do you have enough bodies? And the capabilities, do you actually have the expertise in-house to work on these organizational capabilities? And then same implementation and development or deployment, sorry, for your purposes. Your purposes should also be ranked in relation to the organization's capabilities. Can you deliver on training right now? If training is your most important reason for being, is it your top, or is that where you focus? And if it's your most important, is that where you focused all your resources or not? Maybe you chose not to because you've got other things you want to work in parallel. Does the organization need to achieve some minimum level of organizational capability before you start focusing on your purposes? Or can you work the purpose or some or all of your purposes in parallel with improving your organizational capabilities? I don't know the answer to those questions. That's the discussion you would all have as the strategic planners there at CABOC. So with that, I'll stop for a pause. I promise breaks throughout this. I don't know if we need to take an official break. People may be getting up and walking around and going to the bathroom on their own. So I'm happy to stop here. I'm also happy to engage in conversation.
Greg, Lorraine here. It seems like what you're saying is, one, we've got to decide whether we want to do a strategic plan after looking at the basics of what you have to do. Second, we have to decide what our resources are. Third, do we have the expertise to do what we want to do? And fourth is to plan how to get those accomplished. Is that what we're looking at?
Thank you. I'm going to keep you on the payroll, Lorraine. No, that's absolutely right. I mean, I couldn't have said it more clearly myself.
Yeah.
We'll see on the next packet of documents that I share with you all that that's the case, Lorraine.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question regarding performance metrics. This is Wendy.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, by all means, Wendy.
Thank you. USC made it very clear there is no quantifiable evidence-based metrics for CABOC, and I assume they went back to the CABOC time because the organization was around for a long time. So it may not have been evidence-based or documented or quantifiable, but anecdotally, those of you who have been involved for many, many years, do you have a sense of what impact you've had on your clients through the years? Have school districts changed their methods of doing things? Are CBOC members better trained to ask questions and review data? Or does anyone have any sense of that?
I could speak to that. This is Anton. I would say I was a co-founder with Michael Day of the California League of Bond Oversight Committees. I think they were around for about 10 years. I would say they had absolute no impact. We did have a business plan that was approved in 2017. There was no interest in implementing that plan, and I was subsequently removed from that board. In terms of our own organization, we've been around 2 years. I think we've had some limited impact on individual districts where we've gotten involved directly with that district. But I would say the impact has been practically nothing.
Oh, okay. So that's of concern. that's definitely of concern and something that would need to be reviewed to even develop the strategic plan.
Yes, Wendy, it's a great point. That's why I made the observation. KPIs are one could argue the most important part of the strategic plan. I would not argue that, but some do. But I will absolutely concur with those who say putting the proper ones in place or identifying them and then implementing them very difficult.
Yeah.
But I can stand back and say, well, if one of your goals is to have CABOC members personally visit a certain number of regional CBOCs, that's part of your engagement plan. You want CABOC members out in the field with CBOCs. That is something easily measurable, right? Now, whether it's effective or not, that's another question. But you may well decide as part of your engagement strategy that that's something you want to do. So you can measure that. Now, whether that engagement turns out to be effective, that's a second order effect. That's what you want to see, but that's much more difficult to measure. You're absolutely right, Wendy.
I think it's Nick, then Christine, then Carolyn.
Yeah, thank you. Wendy, I'm really glad you brought up the metrics issue because I've been somewhat removed from the day-to-day operations the last several months because I resigned from the board. But as I recall, up until recently, we did not know how many people were accessing our website, which I was kind of astounded. And it was the way it was set up. And I'm not into the finger pointing mode, but that was like, it was kind of how it was set up, the website. So that was like, for me, that was troubling. But specifically drilling down on that issue, hopefully that has been corrected and we could have data on how many people have accessed our our first conference posting of the questions and the answers to get an idea of actually how many people actually read that material. Because we spent a lot of time post-conference trying to respond to the questions that were raised there. So metrics are important. That's my first point. But the second point, it's like, in terms of developing the strategic plan, and my professional experience was it was a tool for decision making on funding of capital projects. That kind of how it. So I think it's a really good decision maker with limited resources. You got a plan and know what your mission is of how you figure out where to spend your time, especially with volunteers. So what I think needs to be done, and I can't give you a time based upon sort of my professional experience as well in terms of analysis, is contrary, and maybe Greg will disagree with this. I think to really get what we need for a strategic plan is not going to be done via a survey of the board of directors and advisors. I believe somebody, the same person or persons with a consistent set of maybe some basic startup questions needs to sit down or zoom in, zoom out, talk with every one of the directors for about this equal amount of time and get their free-flowing input on what they like and what they don't like and what direction we ought to be going. And the reason why I say using that approach, you're going to be able to get information that you would not otherwise get in a collective board meeting where dominant personalities can skew the direction of where the organization is going. So I just kind of throw that out as sort of a stream of consciousness view on maybe as we think of moving forward of a possible approach to getting a plan, because I think a plan is needed, but with that goes to do the plan, we got to know what we're going to be doing it for. That's why reaching out to the oversight committee member in the best forum possible, which is probably the idea of actually showing up at enough meetings to get a flavor for what they need, and take that information and have it as a major input into the strategic plan. So anyway, that's my sort of collective view right now.
Thank you, Senor.
I think Christine.
Hi. I just wanted to counter a little bit what Anton said about success. In that in my experience, and there may be other people that are in this meeting that are board members, that if the information that I got from CABOC, I was not able to access at the start of becoming a bond oversight committee member. If it wasn't there, I just, there's a lot of small victories that myself in a minority position, minority opinion position in my personal CBOC, that there are things that absolutely wouldn't have happened. So I just wanted to say there may be experience of success within the group that is in this meeting now, who can look back and say, oh yeah, you know, there was that whole thing with the audit, and so-and-so explained it to me. And if I hadn't have known that, I couldn't have pushed for this. So that I just wanted to share that.
Thanks.
Okay, Carolyn.
Oh, I'm muted. You know, I like the study that USC did, because I think it took a very broad look at the organization. And when they came up with their recommendations, I thought that was good. But even in dealing with the recommendation, I think it's tough for the size of the organization and what our capabilities and availability to work. But I do believe that we could focus on a few things like the purpose, delivering on the training. I liked your idea, Greg, about visiting some of the CABOC members. I think that was good, because you never know what's happened, but I've been criticized already. And the one thing that I've think about is that school districts really, they don't promote training that much for the CABOC members. They really don't. They depend on their attorneys to provide the minimal training, and that's about it. And I've also have come to the conclusion that it's not only the Citizens Oversight Committee that needs training. I believe it's also the school board members that need training, because they go and they blindly launch bond projects, number one, getting the measure approved, but once the measure is approved, the bond sales, they're like clueless of the complexity of putting in together a $200 million project. Like, who do you do it? What's the oversight? Where's the approvals? All that stuff, they're clueless. And I can tell you from my experience that with 30 years of experience in facilities management, I'm always finding things that I'm just appalled at. How come we did it this way, or why? So, I do think that the focus for CABOC is really to focus on the training. We do need to have some metrics, but the key is to keep it simple. Now, I was years ago, and I could say it's over 10 years ago, I was a Baldrige examiner, Malcolm Baldrige examiner, and they have a framework and a model. And I find that to be sort of an effective approach to looking at how you identify different elements of your organization. For example, when you talk about where do you keep the institutional knowledge, that's right in Baldrige. It's knowledge management, that it becomes a repository for your documents so that people can go back into that to get what is the historical information, or that's where I keep my training materials. So there's a lot of approaches to use, but I do think that doing a strategic plan is a difficult process. It's a timely process. And I'll just tell you that even for a Baldrige application, it is 50 pages. There's a limitation for it, but 50 pages that looks at the organization is tough to do, because you have to be very succinct. So I do believe that we're still on the growing phases, and it takes time, but we should have sort of like a little framework that we can work with, but we also need to ramp up certain areas in order to show that we can deliver to our stakeholders. And it's right in there in terms of training conferences, and providing online support. So those are key aspects of it. So anyway, that's what I think that the team needs to get together and figure that all out. But I do feel that we can have a starting point. We can look at developing a strategic plan later on, maybe toward the end of this year, because I know a number of us have attempted to come up with a business plan and we haven't been too successful with that as either. So anyway, that's just what I'm thinking. Thank you.
And I think Linda, I think you're up.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Please just let me introduce myself briefly. This is my first time attending your strategic, your conference. I'm living in San Francisco. I'm serving on a CABOC, and I actually recognize my colleague, Christine Hansen, on this line. I've been posting some questions. And what I would like to suggest, I have an extensive experience on strategic planning. I agree with Nick and Lorraine statements earlier. What I would like to suggest for the CABOC organization, given the fact that there are billions of dollars of bonds, capital funds all over the state, your organization should exercise some influence. I've never heard anything about your organization before. It was just through a curiosity that I came about, and I decided that I want to be part of today's session. Strategic planning is essential. That's the previous coordinator, facilitator has mentioned. And it's not actually difficult. It's not difficult. You need to go back and to answer your questions. How are you going to part of your strategic plan? It's actually the outcome of the Bismol survey that where 3,000 received. That could have been addressed, upfront. Who are you trying to reach? Where is your engagement with all the CABOC, stakeholders in the state? You can, through your strategic planning, have a goal to interact with just the chairs of those committees. And then when you have a survey, you send that to the chairs and they internally help you to coordinate that. What kind of institutional knowledge are you trying to, espouse? Those are the questions. How are you going to engage with the legislature? What issues are being communicated by members or chairs that you really wanted to address? So I can add so many questions. The USC study is generic. It's applicable to Chevron, to small organizations of business. I look at the questions. They are. If you're operating any kind of business, nonprofit or whatever, you should utilize all those recommendations. It is really very helpful. So that's just my comments. It's not so difficult. And again, I have experience and going to pay attention to the CABOC in California, and we can actually help to how to conduct a strategic planning if you chose need that help. So those are just my generic questions. I think what you are doing today is important. I would also like to suggest in your agenda, you should state as a preamble, what is the mission of your organization? What have you done? So that, people that are coming in for the first time can get a glimpse of what you've accomplished. What is your mission? That should be very important. And so here we are, almost about, 2 hours to this session or more. And the question is, okay, what is your mission? What is your structure? What does it look like? I'm also kind of, probing and asking myself. So that's just my statements, please.
I think Lorraine, I think you're up.
Yes, I just was thinking of another audience that maybe CABOC should pay attention to. And according to the law, you have to have 5 positions represented, like your taxpayers, your business associations, et cetera. Well, I think CABOC should try to work with these people, if you know who this CBOC taxpayer rep works with this group, because there's very little, I found very little information that the group you're representing tells you what they need, what they want to know. Do they care about your annual report or your compliance statement or things like that? So I think that's another group to consider if you're strategic planning. That's all.
Thanks.
I think Christine just still has her hand raised, but we're all done on that.
Okay. Thanks, Keith.
Sorry, I'll fix it.
Oh, I think she meant to take it off. Okay, so I'm looking at the clock. It now says 12:30. And I'm looking at my agenda at, yeah, we're about 15 minutes behind. So I'm cognizant of 1 p.m. So I'll try to help us through the last bit of content here. So we have, welcome to the retreat, operational excellence, survey results, and the USC study. So now this is the $64,000 question. What, if anything, should CABOC do next on strategic planning? So that's where I'm going to head next. I've got 2 short documents. The first one.
You're not sharing your screen at the moment, so.
I'm not.
No, right now we're on grid.
Oh, that's because Kevin came in and took the screen and I didn't.
know. Saw that.
Yeah, okay. I'm very, very sorry. Let me go back. And oh crikey. Let's see, where do I get the shared screen icon? Now I've lost it.
Should be at your bottom.
Yeah, but I'm not in the right screen right now. Jesus Christ. No, I'm in the post. Okay. Let me see if.
Looking for the screen that has the man.
No, I'm in the post attendee screen right now.
Wrong meeting.
Yeah, I know, and I'm trying to get back into the main.
Go up in the right-hand corner.
No, I know, but oh Christ, I hate to log back in. I'm not sure why Kevin came in. I saw that. Let's see this.
How about if you minimize your screen? You
Just
might
open up the main Zoom meeting so you can see all of us.
Yeah, well, I know.
Somewhere in there.
Oh Jesus. No, it's not coming up for me. Oh, this is unfortunate. Okay, I'm gonna leave and come back in. Give me 2 minutes. This will be our break. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Buddy break.
Christ.
So while he's gone, may I ask a question? I only got the notice for 10:30, not 10 o'clock. Did the election take place? Was today the day for that?
Yeah, for the ballots, yes.
There we
We had
go.
the elections, and I think that you were on the ballot, weren't you?
I know.
And you got accepted.
Congratulations.
That's what I'm
Welcome.
wondering about.
There were 2 notices, one for the 10 o'clock and one for the 10:30 meeting.
Well, I didn't get.
And
the
you
10
weren't the
o'clock
only
meeting.
one who got confused. Sorry about that.
I didn't get the 10 o'clock notice.
Okay, so can you see my screen now?
Yeah, you're back up.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks for that. I apologize. I'm new to Zoom too. So is CABOC ready for strategic planning? So I know I'm beating a dead horse, but I put this definition up again.
This is Kevin Larson. Do I get to make a comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Go ahead.
Okay, first off, I really thank Greg V. I like the presentation. It's upfront, it's real, and I really like it. Next, I want to thank Linda, Adiki, I believe is her name. And
Yes.
I really agree with everything she said, but I want to make this main point. I've been at this for 5 years. And my main thrust, and I believe it's very, very prudent, is that the CABOC needs to make a nice, simple one-page statement. People like me can download it and can hand it out at the Citizen Oversight Bond Committee meetings, even if it's by Zoom. I can read it during the Brown Act time of my response, which I will do in 3 days. Yeah, Tuesday there's a meeting at the school district my child attends. Now, the simple statement needs to be welcoming, and it needs to say this, and I'm going to make this quick here, but I think it's very prudent. It needs to say, would you like to join CABOC? We have a certificate for you. You know, we have all kinds of information for you, whether you join or not. And if you're unable, and the $20 a year joining fee is a donation, which means you don't have to pay us. But if you can donate $20 a year, it would be appreciated. And we will send you a certificate that says that you are a member of CABOC. And that way, you're going to get a lot of people joining. You're going to get a lot of people on these school board meetings, which is not school board meetings, Citizen Oversight Bond Committees. You're going to get a lot of them going to the website and joining. They love certificates, you know, with their name on it. They like to put it on their wall. And also, it will be a big deal for the plan to let all kinds of people know about this organization. That's all I have to say.
Thanks.
It's a great idea.
So in the interest of time, if there's nothing else burning right now, I would like to kind of plow ahead. I really don't want to have to keep you guys until 2. You won't stay anyway. So is CABOC ripe for a strategic plan? I certainly hear a groundswell of support, some support, but I want to go through quickly now what might come next. And so I put up the definition from USC again. And so right now, let's discuss the 4 key elements of an effective strategic plan. Establish goals related to time, track progress over time, self-assess, and then as you're self-assessing, improve through the redistribution of resources where they are most efficient. That's what a strategic plan allows you to do. So before we move on, before we go any further, let's consider the following. And people who say, I don't know much about strategic planning, I've never been exposed to it. My own suspicion is that that's not true. Are you a single parent? You're likely a strategic planner. Are you a working parent? Are you working parents with kids in school? Yeah, you probably do strategic planning. Think about it. Just go back to these. If you're a single parent, do you establish goals over time? Do you track your progress? You know if your kid's not getting fed or doesn't have clothes, that's your tracking of progress, huh? And you reallocate your resources constantly. You are the single parent for a child. You're reallocating your time and effort constantly. I call that strategic planning. What about a college student away from home for the first time? I went away to college my first time. Believe me, you know how to think ahead quarter to quarter on how to get your classes at the times you want them. A volunteer who also works. That's by and large many of us here on the phone now. You're working plus you're volunteering for CABOC. So do you juggle your time and priorities between CABOC and other volunteer organizations and your working life? I'll bet you do. You may do it on an ad hoc basis, but subliminally, you actually are engaged in a reprioritization of resources. And do you have emergency supplies at home? Do you practice your evacuation and recovery plan? If you do, then you are thinking ahead and you're acting accordingly. And that is strategic planning, my friends. So now we're going to go to the last, well, not the last, the penultimate set of documents. So now this is the last bit, CABOC's purpose, goals, and customers. We've heard a lot about all of these. And you all discussed your purpose statement this morning. I was actually on early, so I caught your discussion about this. You actually preempted one of my questions for you. Here's the one you approved today, the purpose statement. Here's your previous purpose statement. And so my rhetorical questions are, what does this change tell you, if anything, about the evolution of CABOC since your founding? And there was some discussion this morning, so I'm not going to repeat the outcomes of that. And then more importantly, what does this tell you about CABOC's goals, both at founding and now? Now that one I am going to ask the group, what do these purpose statements tell you about your goals? And don't make goals up. I'm asking you from the purpose statement, what does this tell you, if anything, about your goals?
To educate CBOC members in what they're in their job.
Okay.
If we achieve our purpose, we'll have a smooth running machines all through the state.
Okay, now I would argue that's an outcome. That's not a goal you're setting for yourself. That's a more than acceptable. In fact, that's the best possible outcome. So we don't have to conclude this here. I'm just saying many people look at their purpose statements and try to find goals. Most purpose statements, in fact, do not have any reference to goals at all. The goals come from your purpose. What is my mission in life? Based on that mission, what do I need to do?
So what's the difference between goals and outcomes? A goal is a step to an outcome. Is that right?
My goal is to have a 4.0 GPA in college. The outcome is I partied too much and belonged to a frat house, and my GPA was only 2.5. The goal is 4.0. The outcome is 2.5.
Okay.
Greg, I just also like to state that up top, that purpose statement, that is on our incorporation papers as our purpose. So that's important too. That's
Right.
why we exist.
Yep. Thanks.
Linda, I think you're on.
Yes, please. Thank you. So your mission and goal had already been decided by Proposition 39. You are the liaison, the representative representing the state of California. You are the liaison between California constituents, the legislatures, those stakeholders that have interest to ensure Proposition 39 compliance. The strategic plan and planning then will be to identify, now what are the goals and the outcome? What are the performance measures? How are we engaging with the legislatures? How are we engaging with the public? What is our communications? What is the measurement during the year? What do we know? Who is in compliance with the propositions? What issues are our constituents, members, bring it to our attention that maybe we need to engage the legislatures? Those issues are part of the strategic planning, where you identify your communication strategies and logistics. It's going to answer, do you have the means to do that? Maybe if you do not have that, you may ask those that are asking you to enforce Proposition 39 and say, hey, we wanted to do this here. You need to give us more resources to do that so that we can have the staff to do that. How do we engage? Your strategic planning might be within a year to send an invitation to all the chairs of the CABOC in this state and ask them. So I can go on and on and on and all of that. So the strategic planning will answer a lot of the questions. And like the facilitator was talking before about Chevron. Yeah, Chevron, it's a 500, it's one of the organizations in the country. Yes, those methods also apply for the small organizations. And what I also wanted to say here is that you have a tremendous power that I have not actually witnessed. And so your strategic plan will help you to answer some of those questions. And part of the plan might be to invite someone from the legislature to say, hey, this is what we are finding. This is what you need to help us to be able to do this oversight. You cannot continue to operate and knowing that every year, billions and billions and billions of dollars on behalf of the your constituents in California, to the school districts, to whatever entities, you do not know if the expenditures have been spent well. You do not know what I think it's time for you to go back and utilize strategic planning in order for you to be able to be more effective.
Thanks.
Suggestions.
Okay, so I'm segueing. I got a couple pages left, so I'm going to segue. So here's an important statement. The mission always comes first. Always comes first. You know what you're doing, and then you set goals. So here are some mission statements. I actually cherry-picked what I view some of the best and actually not so best. And so I'll let you read those at your leisure. Compare them to your mission statements. Are they effective? Are they not effective? I love the Smithsonian. I want to work for the Smithsonian Institute. What's your mission? The increase and diffusion of knowledge. Doesn't get any clearer than that, huh? Coca-Cola. We all laugh at Coca-Cola, but here's their mission statement. To refresh the world, to inspire moments of optimism and happiness. God love them, we need that now. To create value and make a difference. You can belittle Coca-Cola for what they say here, but they operate this way. You can tell in their advertising and how they react socially. So anyway, the mission always comes first, of course, except when it doesn't. And this is actually a quote from one of my favorite films. It is the single best leadership training film ever made, in my humble opinion. From Saving Private Ryan, the film with Tom Hanks. And here he says, Saving Private Ryan, I don't know anything about Ryan. I don't even care. The man means nothing to me. It's just a name. But if you know, if finding him so that he can go home, if that earns me the right to get back to my wife, then that's my mission. So here's Tom Hanks saying, my goal is to get back home safe and sound to my wife. And if the Army gives me a mission to go out and save Private Ryan, that's what I'm doing. I don't care if I agree with the mission or not. So this gets back to questions earlier. Does the mission include goals? Usually it doesn't. And does the mission come first? In your case, it has. You probably have goals also. So let's talk about goals for CABOC. What are your goals? I said at the front, we weren't going to set goals. I certainly am not going to set them. But strategic planning requires that you have time-based goals. You should have goals that you need to accomplish immediately, in the medium term, and in the long term. Is there a timeline? You need to put a timeline to achieving them. It's not just, oh, this is immediate and this is off in the future. No, when something's off in the future, you got to make a guess as to when it becomes important and when you can achieve it. And do you have a contingency plan if you can't achieve it? Are there identified milestones? And do you have the resources to achieve your goals? This is a key question I have for you all at CABOC. And if you have a bunch of goals, what happens if you don't have the resources? You don't have the people, you don't have the time, you don't have the money, you don't have the facilities. Then you got to fall back and punt and say, well, something that we ranked as a top priority is going to have to slip. That's the nature of the game, as opposed to flitting from burning building to burning building and trying to put out fires. You'll be a much more effective organization if you prioritize and act according to those priorities. This is all consistent with the definition of a strategic plan. And then finally, we've heard this many, many times. Who are your customers and your clients? And here's, again, me brainstorming with myself, not necessarily a pretty terrain. So all I did was lift a whole bunch of potential constituents for CABOC's services and expertise. You can look at those. And, I asked the rhetorical question, who do you, at CABOC, who do you target as your actual clients? And also, you need to be aware that you're going to have people out there that you have no clue they're clients who hit your website or call a CABOC member. So who targets you? Maybe you've missed somebody that has some interest in CABOC services, and that's something you need to capture. You need to know who's coming after you that you're not aware of. But most importantly is, who do you target? So here's my list of 20, but who else? Is it even any of these, or is it none of these? Fundamental question for CABOC. How do you even know they're your customers? How do you know? And then last but not least, does it even matter if you know who your customers are? So I'm true to the beginning that I said we will not be working on an actual strategic plan, and we will not be setting goals and timelines. I played the perfect moderator here in the sense that I didn't answer questions. All I did was ask more questions for you. But to me, this is an important part. These are the two most important blocks. If you choose to move forward with strategic planning, what exactly are your goals and who are your customers? And that's fruitful for discussion. I suspect as many people as there are on the line right now, we could spend the next 3 hours answering these questions up here and these questions down here. That's not today's task, so I don't propose to do that.
I think we have a question from Nick.
Well, I guess a question, actually it's a comment. I don't know if it relates to this specific, who the customers are, but sometimes when you go through this process like we did today, you'd have to, goal is do we need a strategic plan? But I tell you, I've learned two things, big picture things that I think are important, or at least for the group to know from my perspective. And number one is we need to hear from more people than just the group that we had in place before the phone call. There was some great idea. That guy, the gentleman, I'm horrible with names, so my apologies. The certificate and get out to the committees and have it at a donation. That was a great idea. That was a great idea. We need to hear more from new people like we have on this phone call that we haven't heard from, and with new ideas and new perspectives. So I think that's one thing I learned. And the second thing, I at least as I kind of heard as a theme, as this CABOC, and it may relate to our strategic plan eventually, is we need to get out. We need to physically or through Zoom get out to actual bond oversight committees and tout what we do in a simple manner. That one-page handout with here we are during public comment of what CABOC is you look at limited resources, of time and of directors, and maybe that's something to consider as we move forward. As an example of a benefit of the strategic plan is you can figure, well, maybe if we're going to spend our time, maybe we ought to do that versus spending so much time on other things, and that being getting out to the committees. So I learned a lot by listening to what the various comments were, and I wanted the group to know that. Thank you.
Yeah, well done. Thanks, Nick. Go ahead, Wendy. Okay. So with that,
Greg,
Yes.
Sorry, Lorraine here. One other thing that I think is important when you're talking about funds. When we did the conference, the CABOC said that you can, we asked with different groups, and some of them were sponsored by their districts for training purposes. And this may be a source of asking for funds too. When we have these conferences, see if the CBOC members can get it through their districts to pay for it, because very few districts do any training at all. And that might be another client that we look at. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I think it's in Sally.
Well, I just want to chime in here and say that this has been an interesting discussion. I'm with Nick. I found it very interesting to hear from some people I haven't heard before in this context. And I was also encouraged to think that to learn that there are a lot of people out there that are involved here that do have a lot of strategic planning experience. I also have a lot of strategic planning experience, so I'll second Greg's premise that this is an important activity. And so thank you for that. I'm just chiming in. Let's keep going.
Cheers.
And I think Orania.
Yes, I view the CBOCs as the grand juries, and I serve on the grand jury, and I serve on the California Grand Jurors Association. And our goal, it was to reach each grand jury and get people join the association. We had dues, and we used to put a monthly newspaper up that I was the editor and put together and send it to each grand jury members. After the Grand Jurors Association decided to do an online newspaper, seemed like that less and less people became members of the California Grand Jurors Association. So, you know, I know it takes money to mail and stuff, but I think people are more receptive when they get something into their home with information and news. And that's my thought.
Thanks. Okay, just a couple things left. I've got
I
5
have
minutes.
a comment. My name's Kevin Larson. I have a comment.
Okay, can you make it quick, Kevin? I'm coming up on a deadline, so please.
Yeah, so I'll make it quick for you.
Thanks.
Here it is. The Citizen Oversight School Board, the Citizen Oversight Committee for Bonds really is unaware of your organization. Now, I want to state this again. The only way you're going to break through is to visit them under the Brown Act meeting. I mean, I could visit like 4 or 5 different school districts. I could sign up for that. But that's the only way this group is going to break through. And a strategic plan really is not too much use if no one is visiting your website. So that's good that we have the idea of a strategic plan. That's wonderful. But remember, keep it super simple, add to it next year. And the primary goal should be that people sign up, such as me in San Jose area, to visit many different school districts and speak under the Brown Act. If it be under Zoom, fine. But this is a very pertinent comment. And, you know, I want to make it clear that I will be doing this Tuesday in 3 days. I will be speaking. I have to drive over to the room. They're not doing it on Zoom. And the reason they're not doing it on Zoom It's because they don't want people to know about what they do. So I will drive over to that place. I will make my presentation about the CABOC organization. And as I said, I'm concluding with this. There are a few members, like maybe 2 or 3 members, that are very diligent. And they will want to join CABOC, but they never heard of it. So again, to entice them, last comment, I highly recommend the certificate of joining CABOC as a donation. Thank you.
Okay, so excuse me, I'm sorry to cut off further comments. I do want to end on time. So let me, on the premise that leaving them laughing is always a good way to go, let me, and believe me, there's a lot of humor about strategic planning and strategic planners. So I picked half a dozen that I think are apropos for this group. So these are cartoons coming up. So I call it strategy through the ages. The best part is the counterpoint with the one below.
Strategic plan, just get out there and kill something.
I love the guy drawing on the caves at Lascaux, huh? Okay, now this is near and dear to my heart. This is always my plea to everyone ever making presentations. Keep it simple and use pictures. Pictures do help, no question about it.
Strategy, going around in circles.
That's right.
This one is actually my favorite. I love the fish standing in front of the easel, right, with his fins out like, hey, how great is this? And the audience is asleep. Then here's a classic one, is the strategy comes from the top and it gets implemented at the bottom. So this is what I call trickle down deployment. Whoops, sorry.
Smaller picture, slightly fizzier picture.
All right, and then last but not least, this is an aphorism about strategy and tactics that is ancient, but which I take to heart, and I live by this. Not everyone does. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat.
Just being agile.
So this aphorism actually comes from someone who we're not even sure if they actually lived, called Sun Tzu, about 500 BC. And actually he comments, or the body of people who put this information together comments, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. But tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. So you need them both. You need them both. And with that, I'm 1 minute past, and in an ideal world, we would finish with kind of filling in this paper. Were there action items or next steps from today? And then, of course, for your humble servant here on the moderating side, the world famous plus delta, you know, the pluses, what worked today? What should we keep if we have similar retreats? And then the deltas, what needs to be changed? What needs to be fixed? And I'm out of time. Action items and next steps, I presume someone at CABOC will capture from the recording. There was a lot of good stuff. I started writing stuff down and I couldn't keep up. So I stopped. I notice up here in the chat room, there are 58 chats. I have not opened up chat. So my plea is to CABOC, someone at CABOC, please take ownership of capturing action items and next steps. And then offline, if you all would be so kind, either through CABOC or you can send them to me direct, constructive feedback or even deconstructive feedback. You can't hurt my feelings, believe me. I've heard enough other people's feelings in the past with my comments. So I have no problem taking feedback on what worked and what didn't work. And just so you know, if we go back to the agenda, on the back of this, when you get this documentation, here's my contact information. So you can email me, you can text me on my mobile, or you can phone me anytime to talk about any of this stuff. So I would like the feedback. And you can see if you look at the bottom. So here's all the decks. There's 11 decks. This is 30 pages total. That's all. 30 pages. I kind of capture, put them together as little pockets of thought, so they stand on their own, but they also segue one into the other. That's the way I put the retreat together. So anyway, that for me then, that is it from my side, and I'll hand it back to the CABOC people. Whether you want to carry on, you want to stop. People already have stopped. I don't know, and I'll leave when you all give me license to leave. And I'll stay on as long as you want me to.
Well, you need to stay on. You do not have permission to leave. I want to assure you as executive director that we will definitely follow up on this retreat and incorporate the thoughts that were here. And I want to thank you, sir, for your efforts in putting this together and give you a round of applause.
Oh, thanks.
Wait a minute, we got reactions.
Okay. So I think we're done, and you all enjoy your Saturday afternoon.
Thanks, Greg.
No problem.
Anybody that